Okay, so if we start looking at some of the problems from Chapter 6, once again, all these problems are dedicated to just the specific type of flow. So 6.1a is on FIFO, 2 is on LIFO, and then number 3, it's on weighted average. All of the data is in problem 1a. So if we look at 1a, it says record the inventory, the purchases, the cost of goods sold data based on first in, first out. Determine total sales, total cost of goods sold, gross profit, ending inventory, and then which one would produce a higher ending inventory, LIFO or FIFO. So let's just look at some of these transactions. It gets to be repetitive, but first in, first out. So we start off with our beginning balances on January 1. Purchase 22.5 at 85. So now first one's in, first one's out. We just create two layers. All right, right away on the 28th, there's a sale of 11,250. First ones in are your first ones out, which means we will wipe out all 7,500 right there. Plus, we need another 3,750 out of that 22.5. So these two together add to 11,250. So we take the 75 bucks, we use the 85. This is all a part of what we'd call our cost of our goods sold. What's left? 2250 minus this 3750. Excuse me, 22.5 minus 37.50, it leaves you with 18,750 at 85. On the 30th, they sold 37.50 more. So we'll take 37.50 out of that, leaves us with 15,000. On the 5th, they sold 1,500 more. Again, out of that 15,000 leaves you with 13.5. Excuse me. Then on the 10th, they purchased 54,000 at 87.50. All we do is create a layer. We bring that 13.5 down. Here's our new layer. That's our total. So that's how the FIFO first in, first out cycle works. So that's part one. All right, now let's see if I am able to, if I can turn this around. I will do that. I thought I knew how to do that. Here we go. More, rotate. There we go. Okay, so based upon the sales dollars, and that's in the text, you'd have to go through and calculate all of the sales and the dollar per unit, and then you would get your totals, and that would come up with our 19,875,000. This 10,891,000 is coming from right here. 10,891,000 is from the total cost of goods sold. So there's our two journal entries. That would be basically doing a whole month's worth of transactions in one quick swoop of sales and cost. It's not how you typically do that. Number 3, what's the gross profit? Well, it's the difference between those two, right? 8.9 million. What's the ending inventory? Right here. Ending inventory would be these two, the 335 and the 675, or 1,010,000. Based upon the preceding data, this is number 5, would you expect the ending inventory using last in, first out to be higher or lower? Higher or lower? Last in are your first out. Well, if you look here, we started off with 75 bucks per unit. It gets all the way down to about 90 bucks per unit. So the last ones in would be the first ones out. So your ending inventory is going to be based on older numbers. So it should be lower. Now, that would be the flip side of cost of goods sold. Last ones in are the first ones out. Well, then the last ones in have a higher cost. Therefore, your cost of goods sold is going to be a higher amount under LIFO than FIFO. Okay. Now let's look at problem 2A. It says here, the beginning inventory, same thing. Beginning inventory, $75,075. Now it says it's LIFO. Last ones in are your first ones out. Well, here all we did is purchase, so we just created another layer. Last ones in. Now this $11,250, notice it comes from here. So we bring this $7,500 down. $22,500 minus $11,250 is $11,250. Okay, sold $37.50. Notice this $7,500 keeps coming down. $11,250 minus $37.50 is $7,500. Now we sold $1,500. Notice how this $7,500 keeps coming down. $1,500 out of that $7,500 is $6,000. Now we purchased 54,000 units. So notice we bring our $7,500 down, the $6,000 down, and we add the 54,000. We sell 27,000. That's going to come out of that 54. So this goes back to my earlier video. The last in, first out creates layers. Oftentimes many layers. Look at here, lots of layers. In fact, that's the 7,500 that goes all the way from up here. So if you don't sell out, you will always be adding many, many, many layers. Okay, so here's our cost of goods sold, our ending inventory. Notice it's based on 75 bucks, that original 7,500. So the question here is last in, first out. Who produces the higher ending inventory number? Last in, first out does not, because it's all based on old numbers, right? Because we're all the way up to 90 bucks. So last in, first out is going to give you lower ending inventory as compared to FIFO. Cost of goods sold is going to be higher than FIFO because it's based on last ones in or your first ones out, all high ending numbers. And typically that's the way it works. Our costs tend to escalate from one point to the next. Our costs generally don't go down. They continue to increase. So we see how those two work pretty much straightforward. Again, first one's in, first one's out. What kind of industry uses that? I would say like a grocery store. In fact, to be honest with you, today more and more industries fall under FIFO. First one's in are your first one's out. Even, in the new vehicles, they want those out before the next model. Clothing, we want to get the summer clothes out before the fall comes. Of course, I've said the grocery stores. Last ones in are your first ones out. Last ones in, I typically use the example of Menards with a stockpile of wood. The last ones in are going to be your first ones out. You don't generally see, I suppose there could be someone out there that picks the bottom board, but generally you take the top board because they're all the same. Gravel piles, as they put more crushed rock on top of the pile, the last ones in are the ones to be the first ones to go out. And then the problem 6.3. Problem 6.3. Let's see if I can do this again. Almost impressed myself here because I usually can't do all that. Problem 6.3. Weighted average. Very straightforward. Again, no layers. No layers. Using the same data, 7,500, 75 bucks. Here we go. Right away, we see the concept of the weighted average. So we purchased 22,500. So first step, number one, 22,500 plus the 7,500, 30 grand. Or yeah, 30,000. Step one. Step two, we look at the extended cost in that purchase, 19,12,500 plus the beginning. We get our total cost, $2,475,000. We do that every single time there is a purchase. Not worrying about the sales, purchase. Then we take our step three, and that's where we calculate the unit cost, where we take the $2,475,000 divided by the 30,000, and that's when we back into this $8,250. That $8,250 is used every time we have a sale. It changes when we purchase. So this time we purchased 54,000 at 87 bucks, 4.7 million. 54 plus 13.5 is 67.5. 4,725,000 plus 1,113,000, 5,838,000. 5 million divided by 67,000, 86.50. Notice 86.50 is used going forward until there's a next purchase. That's how weighted average works. Where would you use weighted average? Underground storage tanks for gasoline, where we can't really tell how many gallons is at 85 bucks, how much of it's at 87. We use a weighted average. So again, if you look at these three problems and you have the hard copy solutions, the sales number doesn't change. The sales number is the same no matter what method you use. The cost of goods sold, of course, will change. And as you might expect, this $8,973,000 gross profit, or you look at the total cost of goods sold, weighted average, we'd be right in between FIFO and LIFO. Last one's in, first one's out, or first one's in, first out. This cost of goods sold or the gross profit would be right dead in the middle. That basically takes care of Chapter 6 on cost flow for inventory. The big deal, like I said earlier, is give yourself lots of room in order to keep this all clear and straight. Thank you.